There's a question many people carry in silence. Not out loud, not to friends, and almost never even to themselves. It's a question that appears late at night, when exhaustion lowers your defenses and your mind finally stops trying to protect itself. It doesn't have a simple answer, but the very fact that it exists already says a lot. The question is this: should I really be in this relationship? If you've asked yourself that question once, maybe you dismissed it as insecurity, as a phase, as weakness on your part. But if it came back, if it keeps coming back, like an echo that never fully disappears, then maybe it's time to stop, breathe, and truly listen to what it's trying to tell you. Because the problem isn't the doubt. The problem is when doubt becomes routine. There isn't always a dramatic moment. In most relationships that truly hurt you, there's no movie scene, no exact instant when everything completely falls apart. What exists instead is something far more subtle, and because of that, far more dangerous. Signs. Small, repeated, silent signs, but constant ones. Threads slowly wrapping around you, one by one, until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back at you. The first sign usually appears in the body before it reaches the mind. It's a kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. It's the feeling of always being on alert, always waiting for the next conflict, always calculating the right tone of voice, the safest words, the least risky moment to speak. You begin living in survival mode inside your own home, inside a relationship that, in theory, should be the safest place in the world for you. You learn to measure your words, to swallow your reactions, to avoid entire subjects like they're minefields. And it happens so naturally that eventually you don't even realize you're doing it anymore. You only realize that you're exhausted and no longer even sure why. Then comes the distancing from yourself. And that may be the most devastating sign of all because it's the quietest one. You begin to notice that you act in ways you don't recognize, that you react differently than you used to, that people around you, old friends, family, the people who have known you for years, start saying things like, "You've changed. You're not the same anymore. What happened to you?" And you don't know how to answer, because deep down you also feel that something has been lost, but you can't name what it was or when exactly it disappeared. The anxiety grows. Your self-esteem slowly erodes, like stone beneath water, without noise, without drama, but without ever stopping. You become smaller, more insecure, more dependent on approval. And you start interpreting that as your own problem, your own flaw, something you need to fix, when in reality, it's a reflection of the environment you're living in. And then come the invalidations, which are, at their core, one of the most sophisticated forms of control that exist. It's when you try to talk about something that hurt you and you're told you're exaggerating, that you're too sensitive, that being dramatic is just who you are. It's when you try to set a boundary, and instead of that boundary being respected, it's questioned, turned into a problem, turned into proof that you're difficult, complicated, impossible to please. Over time, you stop setting boundaries, not because you agree that you were wrong, but because you've learned that boundaries are expensive. They cost arguments, they cost silence, they cost cold days inside your own home. And it becomes easier to give in, easier to adapt, easier to shrink yourself. And that's the real danger, when you begin to believe you deserve less, that maybe this is the kind of love you're capable of receiving, that asking for more would be naive, arrogant, or immature. It isn't. But relationships that make you believe that are dangerous in ways that go far beyond what can be seen on the surface.
Healthy relationships do not make you question your worth all the time. They do not make you feel like you need to shrink yourself to be loved, stay silent to be accepted, or lose yourself to keep the peace. Healthy relationships are not perfect, but they are safe. And safety is not the absence of conflict. Safety is knowing that even during conflict, you will not be humiliated. You will not be ignored. You will not be punished for having feelings. If what you're living through feels far from that, if it feels like the opposite of that, then the signs are already there. Maybe they've been there for a very long time. Recognizing those signs is not weakness. It's clarity. It's the beginning of an honesty with yourself that many people spend years, sometimes decades, running from. And ignoring those signs doesn't make them disappear. It only pushes you farther and farther away from who you used to be, from who you could become, from who you still can become if you give yourself the chance. Maybe you still don't have all the answers right now. Maybe there's still doubt, attachment, fear of what comes next. That's human. That's part of it. But recognizing the signs already changes something fundamental. Because once you truly see them, you can no longer pretend you didn't. And continuing to ignore yourself after that is also a choice. A choice that comes with a cost. And that cost is you.
If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And tell me in the comments, which of these signs have you already noticed in your own life? In the next video, we're going to talk about something many people never tell you: how to start becoming stronger when everything inside you still wants to stay. Because leaving doesn't begin with a suitcase. It begins with a much quieter decision, and one far more difficult than it seems. I'll see you there.